All right, guys, let's deep dive into the batsman position for BBL Supercoach this season. We're going to be talking through all of our must-haves. We're going to give you some pod options. We're going to talk through some cheapies that you need to start with and even some to stay away from.
We're also going to cover all the breaking relevant Supercoach news with less than 2 weeks to go. Nate, let's get into it.
Welcome to the ultimate Supercoach and fantasy sports show. You are now listening to the Insight Fantasy Sports Podcast.
Yes, you are. Welcome back. Another Inside BBL show coming right at you on the Insight Podcast Network. I'm the Supercoach Brain. You can find me on X at SC_Brain. And I'm joined, as always, by my friendly co-host here, the biggest of horses, Mickey Dell. How are you, mate?
Brother, going well, thank you. Less than 2 weeks to go. And with the news of the PM's 11, the injury news, there's plenty to get through this week, isn't there?
Oh, it's a killer, man. Like my team got decimated as soon as that PM's 11 got announced. I had, obviously, everybody would have had Michael Nisa and those kind of guys, but there are a couple of little pods that I like to take a punt on and they got named as well. So really hurts when the ones that people aren't looking at also get picked, get taken out of your hands.
Something surprising too, Labuschagne and Khawaja available for game one. Wowee.
Oh, just throws another unneeded spanner in the works, doesn't it, in terms of selection, because we now just have no fucking clue about what this Brisbane Heat side is going to look like throughout each game. We could have three different lineups. We will have three different lineups in 3 games in that one round for the Brisbane Heat. So
absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, mate. We'll unpack it all in this episode. But guys, make sure to hit like on the episode. We would appreciate it. And hit that subscribe button if you haven't yet. That way all of the episodes come straight to your front door. If you're listening to us on audio as well, you might be an audio person driving, listening. Obviously, you wouldn't watch YouTube in the car. Maybe you're listening in the car on the way to work or to and from work. You can hit follow and leave us a review, and we'd appreciate that. Now, if you haven't yet, make sure to join our unlimited group as well. It's 482267 is the code. Now, the link is also in the description below, so you can click on that one. It'll take you straight there, and we're going to be giving away a Supercoach Champions ring for the overall winner, as we do for every unlimited league. And we'll be giving away weekly prizes as well for the highest scorer, thanks to the standard squeeze. How good?
Rip a bunch of blokes.
Now, mate, we'll give all the sponsors of the show a shout out throughout the show as well. We're very lucky to have some great sponsors on board. But mate, let's move straight into the news, because there is a fair bit to talk about.
It's time for some news from around the league.
Now, we mentioned the PM's 11 has basically destroyed the hopes and dreams of many super coaches. We've got Michael Nisa, Nathan McSweeney is going to be captaining this side as well. So big role for him. Congrats to him. Bo Webster and Steckety. Now, these 4 guys have been in the conversation, I guess, when we're talking about Supercoach for the last probably month since we've been creating content. They've been guys that you're looking at. They've all been named, which basically wipes them out for the majority of round 1. It doesn't wipe them out for the full round 1, which makes things even harder, because these guys could all come back into game 3 of this first round for the Brisbane Heat. So what are your thoughts on these, man? Like, how do we approach the Brisbane Heat now?
I fucking hate it. Because you know what? You've just hit the nail on the head. They could have up to and including 18 players, different players playing in round 1. So if you're looking for any form of consistency or looking to get some big scores out of players, my Brisbane Heat players in my side have dramatically decreased now, because you just don't know who's going to play.
Yeah, you don't. And the hard part, again, is like the PM's 11 game goes up until, I can't remember the date exactly, but it makes them available for game 3 of the round, which means then these guys are automatically going to come back in unless they're rested. So I can't see Nisa and McSweeney not being picked in this third game for the Brisbane Heat in round 1, which means then there's going to be a couple of people that make way. So there could be a few traps there if we're looking for value from the Brisbane Heat and they play in potentially game 1 or game 2. No one really, aside from probably 3 or 4 players, is guaranteed to play all 3 games for the Brisbane Heat. So for me, and I guess the advice I give everybody is look for stability. If you're going for Brisbane Heat players and you want to take advantage of the triple game week, you want them to play all 3. And there's only, I think, about 3 guys that will.
You're right. Cash is king, but stability also wins your rings. So just remember that when you're trying to plan making money, because you probably won't make that much out of Brisbane Heat players round one.
Yeah, no, you won't. Now, the other guys to mention here for the PM's 11, Cam Bancroft has been named, and I think it's going to be up to him and Matty Renshaw as to who takes that David Warner opening position once he retires from Test cricket. So, bit of an audition, I guess. We've got Marcus Harris as well, who's probably in the running there. He just hasn't exactly been in amazing form. Cam Green has obviously made way for Mitch Marsh in the Test squad, but this is a chance for him to get himself back into the conversation at Test level. So that's great for him. I don't think he'll play too much of a part for Perth though, unless he just doesn't see any squad time with Australia, which I can't see happening. And then we've got Nathan McAndrew, we've got Todd Murphy as well. Sixes on the double, so he's relevant if he doesn't play in that first round. Jimmy Pearson's an interesting one, isn't it? Because it's opened the door for someone, hasn't it?
It has absolutely opened the door for our man Jack Billings, hasn't it? We were a bit and ahhing about Billings, given that he may not have taken the gloves, given that he's an all right fielder, but this opens the way for him to keep now.
Yeah, Billings will take the gloves. It's a lock now. Yeah. And I think we talked about it in a past episode where wicket keepers basically get +10 on average just by having the gloves, just being in that position, taking an extra catch or two a game. So big advantage for Sam Billings. I think he's probably one of the guys that nearly becomes a lock. We recorded the Wicketkeeper podcast before this news came out, so we didn't talk too much about him there, but he becomes a must-have now, I think, to start the season. And you'd be pretty silly not to have him in your team, and he's going to lock in. Whether he bats at 3 or 4, I don't think it really matters. You're going to get 3 games out of him. So I'm pretty happy to lock him in now. We've also got Matty Renshaw, obviously rounds out that squad as well. So not a ton of Supercoach relevance there, but it might open the door for other people, which makes things tricky, like we mentioned. So, mate, next bit of news, Kane Richardson and Aaron Hardy have both been called up to the T20 Australian squad. So they're playing against India in that series, that 5-game T20 series at the moment. They'll be back in time for the BBL, which is great. Good. So we don't have to really worry about any availability issues unless, God willing, there's no injuries. Hopefully there isn't to either of those guys. They'll suit up for their teams in round 1 of BBL. So positive there. Now, I think I haven't had it confirmed yet, but I'm pretty sure I read something today that was about Zampa now coming home.
That's right.
Yes. Yeah, so Zampa's, I think Zampa and Steve Smith are both coming home. Mm-hmm. Who's going over for them? Do you remember?
Nah.
I've got to try and find it.
I will,
but there's a couple of players heading over to replace them. So we'll check that out very soon, and we'll let you know when we do a bit of research on that. Now, you mentioned Khawaja and Marnus Labuschagne. They're named to play game 1, which really makes things tricky, further complicating those round 1 picks from the Brisbane Heat. Yeah, you've got guys like Jack Wood. You've got Josh Brown now with a bit more, I guess, of a solidified role as what we thought. Jack Wildermuth now becomes a pretty big conversational piece, and I know you were pretty high on Jack Wildermuth, so that probably fits into your plans perfectly. And Maxi Bryant probably comes into play a little bit more than we planned now as well. So not that I'd be picking Max Bryant purely because he's a batsman only and he probably won't play too much of a role, but the stocks rise for those guys.
That's right. So Chris Green is heading across as a replacement, and a player by the nickname of Flip is heading across.
Yeah, so that makes things really tough, Josh Phillippe. So, I mean, he'll be back in time, so that's fine. But, yeah, I guess it takes away the rest or the freshness that you would come in. Maybe it plays into Phillippe's advantage. Maybe he comes back into some really good form and has a couple of good hits overseas and for Australia against India.
That's right.
And comes back in some form. Who knows? That could play into his hands a little bit. But, yeah, that'll be good luck. Well done to both of those guys. Chris Green's earned that too. Excited for him.
Absolutely has. Yep.
So, mate, who benefits in the Brisbane Heat lineup now that we've got so much inconsistency? Who are the guys that you go, you know what, these 2 or 3 potentially are going to be playing all 3 games in round 1?
I'm going to give you 4. Okay, because I'm pretty confident on 4.
Yep.
Colin Munro should be ready to go round game 1. Billings, who I've already spoken about, who will keep. Xavier Bartlett, who made 76, was it, for his Gold Coast side over the past weekend. So he's seen them all right, and he's bowling well. And Paul Walter, who I've spoken about in a previous podcast, who should all have increased roles without the PM 11 guys. So
Yeah.
Outside of these guys, do you see any form of stability or?
Not really, no. You know, it's hard because even Josh Brown, who opened the batting for the Brisbane Heat last year for the majority of the BBL, there's no guarantee that he holds his spot. He's been in pretty awful form in club cricket recently. So, you know, you can't really rely on guys that are out of form.
That's right.
But yeah, Jack Wood's an exciting one for me. He's a guy I'm looking at pretty closely because he could easily open the batting or bat top 3 for the Brisbane Heat and get a bowl as well. So, and he's, I think, 42K. So you'd be silly not to go with a dual position guy at basement price that's going to get a game in round 1, if not 2. So it just makes it hard because you don't know whether these guys are going to suit up in game 3 or even in round 2 of BBL. You might have to move out a ton of these guys. So they could definitely be traps. A lot of them won't play 3 games. So that's something you would be wary of there. But Paul Walter is in my team at the moment as well. I really like what he's going to be offering. I'm hoping he bats around 6. If he gets the death overs or even if he gets 3 overs, I'm more than happy with that. My only concern with him is he hasn't bowled that much back in England. So in the recent T20 tournament and the 100 tournament over there, he didn't do a ton of bowling. He was more used as that middle order bat. So I'm really hoping that because they're so decimated, he might get a bit more of a bowl in the first 2 games before Nisa comes back.
For sure.
Let's keep our fingers crossed. Now, another one here before we move into the injury news, mate. Liam Dawson has been rumoured to take the replacement spot for Harry Brook over at the Melbourne Stars. What are your thoughts on that? Because this is an interesting one. This guy's he's played for England in all 3 formats. Yeah.
I texted you as soon as I heard that he may have been a sneaky chance to come across. And as we've spoken about, he's played in all 3 formats, the T20s, the one days, and the Test arena for England. He is an all-rounder and could be a great Supercoach option if he is confirmed to start. I'll ask you this, though. What price is he going to come in at?
I'd like to think he would be like that 62K. I mean, he's not proven, never played BBL. You know, he's not going to come in at Harry Brook price or anything like that. Yeah. I'm really hoping he's sub 100. If he's sub 100 and he's dual position, which he should be because he's genuine all-rounder, then he's a guy I reckon we need to nearly all start with. So that hasn't been confirmed yet, though. So let's just wait for the news to come out, but definitely keep an eye on that if that does get named.
For sure.
Mate, there's a ton of injury carnage going on in the BBL, isn't there? And a lot of guys that have been in my team that are now out. So let's talk through the injuries. Not quite a broken leg, but maybe a broken back for Rashid Khan. He's got back surgery. That rules him out for BBL 13, which crushes the Strikers fans, the Adelaide fans that wanted to see him in the blue suit up again. But he was also in my team, so I've had to move him on.
Yep, same with me. There's only one bloke in Australia when he's around that's got bigger eyebrows than me, and it would have been Rashid Khan. So I'm disappointed that he's not back in Australia playing BBL because I love the bloke, and I've been copping some stick for having him since round 1, but he's a quality T20 player, one of the better spin bowling T20 players in the world, really.
100%.
Does that now mean that Ben Menenti may be the front runner to bowl at Adelaide?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think so. It just depends if they decide to go local or if they sign an international again. And with we're recording this with about 10 days left before BBL starts, you fucking don't have much time to find an international player. And I think finding an international player is hard enough, let alone doing it in 10 days. So I think they've got Menenti there. He can hold a stick pretty well as well. He's a bit of a pie chucker. I definitely wouldn't call him the best, spinner in the squad or in the area, but he's probably better than Cam Boyce, who is the other option there. Yeah. And Boyce would bat 9, 10, 11 at best case. So I think Menenti's the front runner there if they don't sign an international player. But I guess the exciting thing for Rashid Khan being out, as much as we shouldn't draw positives from a negative, Matt Short. Now it becomes a serious conversation because I've seen, and there's so much logic, that this guy's going to bowl, is more of a chance to bowl now. They could even strengthen their batting lineup and just Matt Short bowls 4 and replaces Rashid Khan's overs. And he becomes a must-have, even on a single. You just get the bloke in and pay 244K.
Yep, and then you just lock him away for the season. Done deal. There you go.
I mean, the smart play would be you could put the emergency loop on him. I mean, I think they play in the 3rd game. So as long as you've got a Hobart player or a Perth player in your squad starting, you can easily just put the emergency loop on Matt Short. It's a lot of money to have on your bench, but if he goes and gets 80 plus or something like that in the game that he's got, you want to lock those points away and you can just emergency loop him and swap out your Perth player because I haven't played yet. So Something to think about for sure. We talked about how to loop in the previous episode in the Wicketkeeper podcast. So if you didn't see that one, go back and check it out because you want to know how to loop this year. It's going to be pretty advantageous.
Very strategic, given that there's only 9 rounds.
For sure. Good point. Mate, James Bazley, also, he's done a hammy, tweaked a pig string, old James Bazley, which, but the good thing is it's only minor apparently. So he should only miss round 1 at this stage. And with Adelaide being on a single, it doesn't really hold much relevance. But is there anybody that benefits from Bazley being out?
Yes, but are we going to consider them being on, round 1 game? Like, there's only really Matt Short there that I'm looking at, and then we can take a week to look and see what Adelaide are doing, and then go, righto, this is the direction they're going. These are the blokes that are bowling overs. It's almost a free look at how they're setting up.
Yeah, it is. It is. I think the one thing that potentially we could look at, with Adelaide being on the double in round 2 and being the only team on the double in round 2, I think it might even be a smart move to strategically stash 1 or 2 Adelaide players on your bench for round 1. That way you've got a bit of a leg up on the opposition or the rest of the squad or the rest of the super coaches for round 2, and you can then kind of look in different directions and get the right cheapies in and target the guys that have done well that aren't on the double. A lot of people are going to be hustling to get strikers players in round 2 because they've stacked their teams full of double game week players. And you might have a bit of a leg up if you start with a couple, which is my plan. Now, Jamie Overton interests me now with James Bazley out. There's every chance that Overton gets more overs. He should bat around 6 now with Bazley out. Yep. I've stashed him on my bench just for that reason. I think 125k dual position on the double in round 2. We can get a bit of a free look, you're right, but mate, if he pops off, he gets 4 overs, jags a couple of poles and whacks 20 or 30 at 6, which is very reasonable chance of happening. The guy's a quality player. Yeah, you're ahead of the pack. You've gained some cash from him, and you've got a double game week player in round 2.
How many Adelaide players are you willing to stash though for round 2?
Probably 2. If you're someone who's targeting Matt Short, you probably go Matt Short and Overton on your bench as emergency loops, and if they pop off, you can sub them in. Darcy Short obviously is a bit of a no-brainer. I think if you're wanting to get ahead of the game a little bit, I'm on the edge of starting with him or using him as a downgrade cash grab in round 2. So I think either way you go with that, I don't think it can hurt you too much at 62k. So that the price is nice for Darcy Short. Gotcha. Mate, Nick Maddinson returns to local cricket as well for St Kilda. Yeah. So good to see him back after he did his ACL. He's been out for, I think, 9-10 months. I think it was last Big Bash he tore his ACL, so he's back on the field, which is great. I'm not sure, obviously, whether he lines up in the Renegades best 11 to start the season, but as soon as he comes in, he's going to be in the conversation, I think. What are your thoughts on Maddo?
Oh, I love him as a cricketer. Like, he could really pop off when he's on. If he's playing, he's only 80k. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that.
Chips, yeah.
I think the one thing though we need to look at is if Nick Maddinson doesn't line up, who takes his spot? So I think the health of Sean Marsh and Nick Maddinson at the moment is a really big talking point because Jake Fraser-McGurk is essentially relying on one of these guys being out to get a gig. So I think, if Maddo's out, Fraser-McGurk probably lines up in the middle order, same as John O'Wells. I'd say those 2 guys come in if Marsh and Maddinson are out, but their best 11 has Maddinson and Marsh in it. So we need to keep that in mind if you're looking at Jake Fraser-McGurk. I know we'll talk about him a little bit soon. When we talk about batsmen, there is every chance he doesn't play in round 1 if they're full strength. Now, mate, Ashton Agar very quickly still nursing a bit of a calf injury, but he's pushing for to be available for the start of BBL. He's working closely with the Cricket Australia as well because he is a Cricket Australia contracted. So they've got to work with him to make sure that the path to play is safe. They're not going to rush him back. So he's a close watch, but I think 105k dual position as well for Ashton Agar is a handy little role there and a good option.
Cheap as is what he's ever been, or in the last 5 or 6 years, surely.
I think he's coming off a career low in Supercoach from last season. So, you'd expect an uptick from him if he's healthy. Some guys didn't play Shield cricket this week. Jack Edwards and Hayden Kerr both left out of the Shield side. Liam Hatcher obviously is nursing a foot injury. Not too much Supercoach relevance there, so we don't need to worry about him. But Edwards definitely in the conversation, and I know that you've had him in a team draft that we've done. So
Yep.
Be very interesting to see how he goes. And Hayden Kerr, very popular from last year, 140k dual position. Will have a nice role for the Sixers if he plays. So they've been left out recently in the squad against Tassie, but there's no word on whether they're going to be available either. So we're just going to have to keep an eye out for them. And you mentioned Xavier Bartlett, mate. He's back bowling, which is positive because he spent a long time out. I can't remember the injury exactly, but he hasn't bowled for a while. So he's been playing just as a batsman in local cricket for the Gold Coast in Queensland Premier Cricket. So scored 76 on the weekend as well, which is a handy knock. So with the Heat decimated by injury, there's every chance he starts.
Another, someone to look at. He may be one of those 4 that might play every game should he be healthy.
Could be. It'd be nice if he is, because I think we've got to look out for the trap there, though, that he might not play in game 3 or moving forward if they're full strength.
Given that he's coming off such a long layoff, he may not play all 3, you're right.
Yep. Mate, that's the news. That's the injuries. There's lots going on, and it's kind of shook my team up a little bit, I guess. But the good thing is we can adjust. We've got plenty of time left to make changes. So, mate, moving on to the must-haves, all the premium options. I guess, I don't know about you, man, but there's only one must-have for me as a batsman only. And I should preface this by saying that this is a batsman only. We're not talking about dual position bat bowlers. Mm-hmm. We're talking, they've only got the position of batsman in Supercoach. Which and I'll probably start this off by saying I really don't like having too many batsmen only in my team. So you'll probably find this episode or this segment of the episode will be a little bit shorter because there aren't really too many guys who should be considering with batsmen only. There's so many good dual position players that do a bit of bowling and a bit of batting and have a really nice role. So we're going to do a separate dual position podcast leading up to the season a little bit closer. So about a week away, I'd say we'll do that one. Who's your must-have, mate? Who's the for me, it's only one guy. I think we're probably on the same wavelength. Who is it?
Yep, it's the same. We've been talking about him all season. Colin Munro. In half his knocks last year in BBL 12, he got the maximum strike rate bonus of 25. Season average of 50.4 Supercoach points as well. Only caveat is that he's available for game 1. So depending on how the Abu Dhabi tournament goes, if he's available game 1, round 1, lock him in. He's going to play all 3 games.
I think so. And look, he's a quality player, international quality player for New Zealand. He had a cracker of a year last year as well. And that stat about hitting maximal strike rate bonus in half of his games last year is wild. Like when he gets runs, he gets them quick. So you can back him in.
And it was only, what was it? He had 16 knocks and 12 of them he scored over 10 as well. So he gets away the majority of the time.
Yeah, which is great because you want your batsman to get to 20 as quick as possible, don't you? So you can get that strike rate bonus eligibility. So he's only 18.7% owned as well. So, honestly, if you class a pod as under 20% like me, he's a pod, which is wild to think. And I think this number's going to come in once people start doing some research. I mean, we're going to talk about a batsman here in this list that's over 20% owned and is pretty much not going to play a game this year. So I think people will start to do a little bit more research on their teams next week when we get a bit closer. Yep. Now, no more must-haves for you? And nobody else you'd consider a must-have? Yeah,
not
cool.
Just that, no.
Nah, cool. And of course, guys, the must-haves are brought to you by Bonus Bank, Australia's #1 match betting website. You can go to bonusbank.com.au and you can use the code INSIGHT. Get yourself 25% off your first month if you go to a premium membership. You can also sign up for free. So you don't even have to outlay any coin whatsoever. Sign up for free. The first $75 you make is on them as well, which is cool. So it's a bit of a free crack to see what they're all about. Match betting, using deposit matches and promos within different bookies to basically make risk-free money, which is pretty cool. So hit up bonusbank.com.au and use the code INSIGHT to get yourself 25% off. Now, mate, let's move on to the pods. Now, pods meaning point of difference. I know we've said it a few times in the pod. Maybe we haven't clarified it, but yeah, point of difference players, guys that are essentially under 15% owned. I've gone here, and there's a few nice options, but not really to start. So I wanted to dive into a couple that you're probably going to look at maybe in a round or 2 or 3 rounds time, because they're going to be pretty popular at that time. But there are a couple of interesting ones. Josh Brown, the first one. He's $88,000, 11.8% owned. Now, I'm actually surprised that it's only 11.8. I thought people would have jumped on the hype train that was Josh Brown last year when he came out and banged them everywhere for a couple of games. What are your thoughts on Josh Brown? Is it a little bit of a risk-free swing with him to start, or is there risk involved?
There's huge risk involved when we're talking about Labuschagne and Khawaja coming into the side and the PM's 11 players missing out with McSweeney and Nessa and the likes. Where's he going to bat? Like, Khawaja's going to open with Munro, I'd imagine. Or Munro drops to 3.
Yeah, the only likelihood would be, the only way I see this working out for Josh Brown would be that he opens with Khawaja in game 1.
He has to open.
And
For him to
Munro
be
bats
relevant.
3, Billings bats 4. That's the only way that I see that working.
I don't think it's out. It's out of the question for me anyway that Khawaja bats anywhere but opening. We've seen how good he's been in the past as an opening batsman in the BBL.
Yeah. I think Josh Brown doesn't play game 1 purely because of Marnus and Usman. I think Usman Khawaja opens with Colin Munro in game 1 and Marnus bats 3, Billings at 4. And then I think what you'll find in game 2 is Josh Brown will come in and play game 2 when Usman's gone and he'll open. And then you'll see Billings at 3 or 4 potentially. So, I think he plays game 2 and game 3. He's not going to play game 1, which I think will scare people off, and rightfully so. So, one to keep an eye on. I think, though, he only needs one game to go big. So we saw the 3 big knocks that he had last year were all 50 plus, but he did it in 20 balls and got the max strike rate bonus, got himself 70 or 80 Supercoach points in like 15 minutes of play. So he's definitely a guy you want on your team. It'll only take one game for him to pop off and he'll become relevant. The only problem is that Brisbane Heat's draw just turns to mud after round one.
It's dog shit, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's no good. So you've got to just take him as it is, knowing that you might only get 2 games from him. That's probably the way that I'd approach it. He's on a double game week and then assess from there. He probably becomes just a little cash grab and you trade him out. So that's probably the way I'd approach it with him. Mate, Alex Hales interests me. Now, Sydney Thunder unfortunately don't have the most amazing draw to start, but they have a double game round in round 4. So I'm going to go ahead right now, and you can quote this, 26.50 into this episode, and we'll see how close I am. I reckon he will be the second most purchased player in round 4.
Wow,
behind Daniel Sams.
Wow, okay.
So
big call here.
Only Thunder round 4 double. There are some nice options there. You've got Tan Visanga. He'll be very popular as well in round 4 if he starts well. Alex Hales is a quality batsman, does the job every single year for the Sydney Thunder, but he's coming off a season low in BBL Supercoach points last year, only 40.6 average last year, and he's done as well as 58 in previous seasons. So we're getting him at a massive discount.
Yeah. Well, recently he's been pretty poor, but it is at a discount, and that man can pop off. It's just unfortunate that the Sydney Thunder have a pretty shitty ass start to the year, draw-wise or fixture-wise.
Yeah, that's right. I'd probably only be starting with maybe a Tan Visanga just purely because he's cheap and can be a bit of a cash grab on your bench. That's probably where I'd start for Thunder. Mate, Daniel Sams is very popular. We'll talk about him in the dual position podcast pretty heavily, I think, because he's probably got the best role in the game, batting at 6 and bowling 4 overs and bowling death. But you can't start with him. You just can't. Not on a single when you've got so many other good options, and especially at his price. So I think Alex Hales and him will be very popular. And another one maybe that people might want to take a punt on, this is the pod segment, is Ollie Davies. Now, Ollie Davies around the same price as Alex Hales to start, around 5.3% owned to start the season. Now, Ollie Davies kind of came into his own last year as well, didn't he? He kind of made that number 4 role with the Thunder his own. He could stabilise the innings through the middle, or he could fucking go large and go hard whenever he needed to. One of the best leg side players, I think, in the game at the moment. So I don't hate going with Ollie Davies if he's less owned, to be honest. That could be a nice little risky play that could pay off in round 4.
Yeah, he's one of those unique players that, like, he can get away and go large straight off the bat, or he can sort of play his way into an inning. So he's not just a one-trick pony. He can score to run a ball if he has to try and stabilise an innings, or he can just go large cabbage and go nuts. So I really like him. And again, it's just the fixture that's turning me off any Sydney Thunder players at the moment.
100%, mate. So we can move on. We can move on to... Sorry, I was going to cut you off. What'd you say?
No, I was just about to say, when you're talking Ollie Davies or Glenn Maxwell at the same price, and you've got Maxwell as a dual position player, there you go. Yeah,
it's a no-brainer. Yeah, I wouldn't be starting with any batsman only from the Thunder, or any single game player batsman only, to be honest. Now, these last 3 guys are pods for a reason. They're under 6.5% owned, but they're all on a double game week to start. Now, talk to me about Ashton Turner, because I know you've had your eye on him a little bit. What are your thoughts? Yeah. 105K. He's only 6.5% owned, so people aren't really watching. What are your thoughts?
I think people forget that he can bowl. And if Ashton Agar doesn't play, he's going to bowl. And you know what? There was, 5 times last year he scored 50 plus and bowled in nearly half of Perth's games in BBL 12 at 105K, double game week, round 1. I know they've got the bye round 4, round 5. They've got bugger all games in that span, but like he's bordering on coming into my side at that price. Like I really, really like that pick. I know he's only a batsman, but he could get you bowling stats as well. And he's a good fielder.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he does field in pivotal spots on the field. And I think the one big kind of driving factor for me is if Ashton Agar isn't fit and isn't ready to go, and they decide they don't want to go with someone like a Cooper Connolly, which I think is rare. I think they'll go with Cooper Connolly. But let's just say, for instance, they don't. Let's say they don't want to go with Hamish McKenzie. He's a little bit raw. And they just go, you know what, let's strengthen our batting a little bit. We've got 3 or 4 really good frontline quicks in Andrew Tyre, Berendorf, Lance Morris, and Jai Richardson. Like 4 of probably the best quicks in the game, all in the same team, which is just crazy.
That's 140 plus everywhere there.
And they decide we want to roll with these 4 guys. They're going to get their 16 overs, and we just want Ash to get through his overs through the middle of the innings nice and quick. He can do that. So, imagine having those 4 bowlers in your team and then having another genuine 7 bats around them. That's insane.
That's crazy. Yeah.
I just don't see it happening. I think Cooper Connolly is another one we'll be talking about when we talk dual position players, because he's starting to come into the conversation a bit, but we'll leave him for another episode. Now, I might quickly jump to Sean Marsh first. Now, Sean Marsh isn't fit, hasn't played much cricket recently. He's 114K, only 2.5% owned. So I don't think he's a guy we're going to be talking about. I think there's a real chance he doesn't even play in round 1, unless by some miracle he's ready to go. But he just hasn't been playing enough cricket for me, for them to trust him to open the batting. But I mean, it's Sean Marsh. Yeah. The guy's a jet. It's you can't discount that kind of quality. So if he plays, he could be a nice little smoky in the double, single, double. They've got 5 games in 3 rounds, the Renegades, so their schedule is probably one of the best you'll see. You can go with much worse options than Sean Marsh, I think, at that price.
Oh, for sure. He's shown in the past that he doesn't need much of a warm-up or fitness in order to middle the ball wherever he wants it to go. So if you see him in round 1 and he's opening the batting, maybe worth a play. For me, I'll be steering clear, but he's got the runs on the board, and his previous history suggests that it doesn't take much for this man to get going.
No, that's right. And I think the beauty of round 1 is that obviously teams will lock out as they go. Your players will lock out, but you can make unlimited trades all the way up until the end of the round. So if you want to make a trade or make a change and you want to go from Sean Marsh to Jake Fraser-McGurk because Fraser-McGurk's going to bat at 3, and we see the team list an hour before at the toss, we find out the Renegades are batting first and Fraser-McGurk's batting at 3, you just swap him straight out and go Fraser-McGurk, bank 50K. So that's the beauty of it. You can just shift across different players based on when we see these team lists come out an hour before each game. So that's the advantage there. Now, another guy who's on the double will then have a bye and then another double is Hilton Cartwright, which I think he's interesting, isn't he? I mean, he can wicket keep. He won't because of Sam Harper, but he can keep if he's needed to. And fuck, he hits a big ball, Hilton Cartwright. The guy's he's a man mountain. Yeah. So, he had 7 scores above 20 last year. So he's getting the strike rate bonus in every single one of those games. Now, I think he must be batting top 4. I think the only way I pick Hilton Cartwright is if he replaces Bo Webster, and Bo Webster was planned to bat at 4 or something like that. And they decide they want to drop Stoinis down the order. And Maxi wants to bat 3 or whatever, that's fine. Hilton Cartwright's also opened the batting in the past, so if they decide to move away from Tom Rogers or they want to drop Sam Harper down the order, and Hilton Cartwright opens the batting for the Stars in game 1, he's straight into my team if he's opening the batting. I wouldn't even think twice.
There's not many people that can hit a bigger ball than this guy.
No,
he's unbelievable. He's huge. But you're right, at 92K, you said they've got a double and then a single double. Is that right? Or a bye, sorry. So you could, at 92K, you could use him as your loop in round 2 as well if you wanted to.
Yep.
You're not breaking the bank and leaving stupid amounts of coin on your bench. So there's that option there too. So if you see that he's opening the batting or batting top 4, you could definitely do worse.
The only downside is that when Webster comes back in, Hilton Cartwright, very high chance he just drops straight back down to probably 6 where I see him batting. There's a 95% chance he bats at 6, I think.
You're right, but if Webster misses that first, or he will miss that first game, regardless, because he's in PM's 11, Hilton Cartwright comes out and bangs 50 off 20, looks really good doing it. What's not to say that he stays at the top of the order? This is one of those picks that, could make or break you being in the top 100 or the top 1,000 or however which way it's going to go.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. It is a big, and then these are pods for a reason. They're definitely point of difference players. There's big risk involved in taking guys that not many other people are looking at, but it can pay off massively. I think also we just need to keep in mind, you're not looking at all these guys. You're probably just taking a punt on maybe one of them. And if I'm taking a punt on a pod, I need them to be a dual position player personally, unless I'm just feeling a little bit nutty that day and I just want to get a bit spicy with it. I think that the reason is that obviously players that bat and bowl are going to score more points. We know that. It's proven. The fielding side score 60% Supercoach points. The batting side score 40%. So we know that batsmen only, if they're only going to get a bat, they're not going to get a bowl, and they're not going to play a really important role in the field. There's every chance that they're going to score less than somebody who does both. So the only exception to that rule is when I faded Steve Smith last year. And it probably cost me a top 200 finish. Yeah. So that's the exception, but it is smudge. You can't go against Steve Smith. No. Now, guys, the pods, they're brought to you by Ryan from Astute Newstead. So if you guys are looking to get into the market, into the home loan market, maybe you're looking to kind of renegotiate your interest rate. Maybe you've been hit hard by the rate rises, the cash rises recently, like we have, then you can hit Ryan up and he'll work with over 50 lenders. So your advantage is he does all the work for you. You don't have to negotiate with the big banks. He does it all for you. He'll find you the best rate, and he makes the process nice and easy. So you can reach Ryan from Astute Newstead at Ryan Astute Newstead on Instagram, or ryanh@eganwealth.com, and tell him we sent you, and you get a no cost, no obligation free consult as well for anybody who listens to the podcast. So thanks to Ryan for the support. Mate, do you want to take us into the cheapies?
I can. I'll go with 3 straight off the bat. Daniel Hughes, Jack Edwards, Curtis Patterson. So 62K and 93K each, respectively.
Yep.
Daniel Hughes could have a role, depending on how Sydney Sixers line up. Jack Edwards, he's been bowling pretty well this year, but a niggly injury again, I believe, to Jack Edwards. So not sure whether he's going to bowl or just bat. And Curtis Patterson is that far out of form. He probably needs to even drop back into the twos to find some form. He just cannot buy a run at the moment.
He's struggling, isn't he? I think there's every chance this is Daniel Hughes or Jack Edwards' spot at 3 for the Sixers, because someone needs to take it. It's open for one of these 3 guys to take this spot. I think at the moment, Daniel Hughes probably has it, just based on the fact that they've relied on him in the past. You know what you're going to get from him. But I think the upside pick is Jack Edwards. I think if you're looking for someone, and if the Sixers are looking to kind of lean into the youth a little bit, it'll be Jack Edwards, knowing the fact that he probably can produce with the ball as well and give them another bowling option. It means that Moses probably doesn't have to bowl as well, which probably is his preference. So if Jack Edwards is in their lineup in round 1, I think you're silly at 62K not to just chuck him on your bench with your emergency loop and just see how he goes, because that's pretty much automatic cash from that price.
$. Yep.
Tell me about Darcy Short, mate. He's a cheapie. He sits into the cheapie column, 67K.
He's 38.3% owned. I'm just not about him. Yep. He's struggling to buy a run this year. And if I'm putting players on my bench to make money, then I want them in form. And this guy could easily just bomb out. And there's not many people that lose money from 67K, but he could be the first the way he's batting.
Hey, it only takes one good rock if you play in a single game week, right? You don't get a second chance. There's a very high chance he doesn't bowl. So, one good rock, he's done. And that's the disadvantage of being a batsman only. This is the first year that Darcy Short has not been a bat bowl dual position as well. So you don't even get the flexibility that you used to have with him to chuck him in your bowler slot. You have to use him as a bat only. The smart play would be to watch in round 1. If he fucking goes nuts, good on him. And then you pick him up round 2 for their double. That's basically the way I'd use it. And then you could pretty much go anybody that didn't perform in round 1, or potentially a Brisbane Heat player, or Colin Munro, whoever, down to Darcy Short, free up 70 or 80K, and that'll give you the money then to go and get Matt Short.
Matt Short if you don't already have him. That's right.
Yeah, so I much prefer Darcy Short as a round 2 downgrade as opposed to starting with him. I think it just gives you a bit more flexibility there. You get to watch for a week on a guy that isn't in good form. It's probably the safer play.
For sure.
We already mentioned Josh Brown. He classifies as a cheapie. Plenty of risk there taking him, knowing that he won't play all three. But worth a look anyway for the spicy people. Jake Fraser McGurk, he could be called a cheapie as well, I guess, at 62K. We kind of hinted that we weren't overly keen on him in previous episodes in the Renegades pod. It's hard to see when they're full strength whether he even makes this best 11 for the Renegades. And to be honest with you, mate, he has done sweet fuck all since he got that record-breaking 100.
I'm glad you said it, not me. Yeah.
I mean,
he's done nothing.
There's every chance he just bats six. You won't bowl. You just bat six. And I'm not picking a batsman only that only has one role that's going to bat at six. I'm looking for top 4 batsmen, probably top 3 batsmen preferably, and then maybe a top 4 batter. I'm more than happy to take a Billings if they're keeping or whatever. But yeah, a guy batting at 6 and not bowling isn't for me. So, and he is very well owned, 25.4% owned. So
Wow.
I think he more sits in the avoids or a bit of an antipod at that price. Yeah. And when I say antipod, you're going against the popular pick, basically death riding him, hoping they fail. So I reckon he's a good antipod. He's someone you can probably go against.
Yep.
Now, the antipods, I guess we'll call them, are brought to you by the Standard Squeeze. Got my little 4-in-1 here, thanks to the Standard Squeeze. We've got our little combo packs in the background. Standard Squeeze are also providing the weekly prize every single week to the highest score in the Unlimited League. So jump into that one if you haven't yet. The link's in the description, but you can go to thestandardsqueeze.com and you can use the code INSIGHT15. They give you 15% off everything on their store. They've been a day one supporter of us for Standard Squeeze, so thanks to Ash and the team over there. And also promotes like safe drinking as well, which I think is underrated. A lot of people don't even know what the Standard Squeeze is. And if you can track the amount of alcohol that you've had and you need to drive down the track or whatever it be, I think that's crucial. So thanks to the Standard Squeeze for their support. Make sure to use Insight 15 on their website and go and cash in. They just had their really big 50% off sale as well. I think there's every chance it might still be running. So go and take advantage of that as well if you can, if it hasn't ended yet.
Yeah.
Now, mate, we're talking about avoids or antipods or people that we're just staying away from, I guess. Now, Mitch Marsh, 197K, 23.4% owned still. This guy's the Australian Test all-rounder. He won't play.
I think we've said it enough in previous podcasts, mate. He's just not going to play. Do not pick him, please.
This is I guess,
if you are going to pick him, join my cash league so I know that I'm going to win that matchup.
Yeah, good shout. Don't mind making money. But yeah, no, look, 200K for a guy who's not going to play, don't bother. And I think a lot of people have just gone and done the autofill and it's chucked Mitch Marsh in there and they'll look closer at their team before BBL kicks off in a week and a half. But yeah, we'll see him drop down to close to 0% ownership, I think. Now, Harry Dixon also is a bit of an interesting pick. He won't see any game time, I think, for the Renegades. But I think I know the reason why people are picking him is because he's a really good loop option at 42K for a guy who's just not going to play. What I would recommend people go to Chowdhury, who plays later in the round in game 1 and is a dual position player, so you can use the loop in bat and bowl.
So you can use it both ways. You're not just pigeonholed to use your loop in bat.
Yeah. So Harry Dixon to Chowdhury will probably be a pretty popular move when we get a little bit closer. Last one for me, mate. Absolutely avoid at all costs Aaron Finch.
Lunch. It's lunch. Stay away from him.
It's so for anybody who doesn't really follow any other format of cricket and they're just looking at the BBL or you're looking at domestic cricket, he actually recently played in an American T20 league. He averaged 13.6 Supercoach points across 5 matches. So,
and for those of you playing at home, that is sweet fuck all.
Yeah, that is not good. That is not what you get at 125K. I think that's probably priced at about a 30 odd. So, yeah, you're not getting that. He's going to lose bulk cash if he's getting 13s. And he will bat 4. He will anchor the innings, and he does play that role really well for the Renegades, but the form isn't there. He even went over and played in a Masters T20 tournament against a 48-year-old Chris Gale and a few other guys. Jux Callis played in this comp and fucking tore it up as well, by the way.
And he still bombed out. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he averaged 41 across 9 games or something. So, I mean, you're playing against fucking 50-year-olds, mate. Come on. Like, don't pick him. Don't pick Aaron Finch. I'd rather pick Sean Marsh over Aaron Finch every day of the week if he's playing.
I think that sums Sean Lunch isn't going to steal your lunch.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's true. Mate, that just about does it. I know it's bat only, so there's not a ton to talk about. We're going to be diving into the bowlers, which will be a very relevant episode coming up very soon. And we're also then going to drop a dual position player pod, which could go for 17 hours with the amount of amazing dual position options there are and the amount of relevance that a dual position player plays in Supercoach. So there's plenty of good ones there, but also bowlers as well. We need to keep in mind that bowlers only are much higher value than batsmen only, because you get a good rock, you're done. You get 24 balls if you're a bowler. You know, let's look at I think it was Mark Wood last year for the Stars. The bloke got towelled up all over the shop. I think he finished with figures of 3 for 60 or something off 4 overs and still ended up scoring like fucking 75 or 80 Supercoach points in that game when he got fucking put to all parts. So bowlers have much more of an advantage, especially death bowlers. If you're a bowler only, I don't mind. I've actually got 4 of them in my bowler slot because I know they have really good bowling roles. They'll probably bowl the death. They're good quick bowlers as well. Much more preferred than a batsman only. I'll probably just leave it at that. So they're coming soon. Mate, what else is coming soon? We're going to be doing a live, I think, aren't we, in a week and a half to kick off the season?
Yeah, we're going to be doing a live just a couple of days, I think, before round 1 to go through our teams, to go through our structure, to go through pretty much everything that the fans want and need to hear prior to round 1. And it'll be one of their last chances to join in our leagues that we have. So for those of you that missed it at the start of the episode, 482267, it's a free league. Join in. It, as we said, doesn't cost anything, and you get to win a Supercoach ring if you beat everyone. And there's prize packs to be won each week should you be the top scorer. There is also a cash league that we're running, a $50 cash league. If you click on the link below to our Discord, you'll find all the details in there.
Love that. Yep. Looking forward to the season kicking off. And also we should mention lives. They're live for a reason. So you can hop into the chat and you can ask your questions and we'll answer them directly to you on the spot. So definitely jump into the lives when they come. I think it'll be next Wednesday by the time this drops, because first game will be Thursday. So we'll be able to answer all your last minute questions on your teams, your trades, your moves, your captains, all that kind of stuff. So we'll be doing that every round for the BBL through all 9 rounds as well. So stay tuned for that. But otherwise, mate, any final words before we wrap up?
No, I think we're done. Good chat.
Love it. Always fun. Thanks, guys, for watching. Hit subscribe and like if you haven't already, and hit follow and leave us a review on audio if you have not done so. That'll do. We'll see you next time. You've been listening to an Insight BBL podcast. Catch you later.